Happy Tuesday, everybody. My name's Aaron. I'm the co-founder, managing director here at BWG Connect, a giant networking knowledge sharing group. Been around for about 8 years now. Kick this off to allow those opportunities for the real-time issues that are facing people in the digital space today. How do we tackle those? And how do we come together and get as many questions answered as possible? So I spend the majority of my time talking to brands and organizations. I try to hit 20 to 30 a week. And when the same topics come up over and over again, that's how we get the topics for an event like this. So it's in those conversations, doing some networking and knowledge sharing, but also asking everybody, hey, who's working for you and who's not? And so not only are we getting the topics from those connections, but also the highest recommended service providers that are out there and the newest technology that's popping up. So after we wrap this up, look for a follow-up email from me. I'd love to have a conversation with you and see what's going on in your space. More than happy, obviously, to open up the network and make as many connections as I can. And so as we kick this off, just a couple housekeeping items. We want it to be as educational and informational as possible. At any point in time, if you have a question, drop it in the chat, drop it in the Q&A, or you can always email me, Aaron, Aaron at bwgconnect.com, and we will field those questions as real time as possible. The other thing is we just want to be cognizant of time. And so we're starting this at 3 to 4 minutes after the hour to make sure people had time to join. But we're going to also wrap this up with at least a few minutes to go. So if you're looking at your watch, if you have a next meeting that's going to happen at 2:30 Eastern, just know that we're going to wrap up well before that. So give you plenty of time to get on to your next meeting without being late. Maybe even grab a cup of coffee along the way. Who knows? But we'll give you plenty of time for that. And so is a lot of these conversations that I'm having right now is a lot around personalization, around customer journey, and in this idea of building trust and cohesivity across all the different channels that we're connecting. And so we got some great friends, partners, supporters of the network we've known for a while now. They come highly recommended over at indigitall, and Josh Rice is here today. Josh, I think I'll just kick it over to you. If you want to kind of do a brief
Yeah,
intro on yourself indigitall, that would be awesome. And then we'll kind of jump into the conversation. Does that sound good?
that sounds perfect. Thanks, Aaron. Well, I'm Josh Rice. I'm the head of marketing here at Digital. We've been around for about 12 years, and we're an omni-channel customer engagement platform that's helping to empower brands create more personalized inbound and outbound customer interactions across all their digital channels. So really excited to be here today.
Yeah. And just one more quick reminder, we had a few more people join. You have questions along the way, drop them in the chat, drop in the Q&A, and we'll get them answered real time. So yeah, Josh, let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm super interested.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot going on today in today's market and all of the kind of uncertainty. And one of the several things that we really recommend a lot of people do and start doing if they're not doing already is really taking a look at their customer journeys and making them more customer centric, building trust with your customers. You know, customers are already more and more discerning nowadays. And especially at this time when people are going to be maybe a little bit more careful with their wallets, it's a great time and opportunity to kind of go back and look and say, hey, how can I really transform my customer journey to make it more personalized to the main personas for my products?
And where's
Uh,
like the really quick, like where does somebody start in this? So if you take a step back, we all in my mind, it might be the data that we have, right? It might be the actual current customer flow, it might be the interactions. But when you see it, when people take a step back, if they're saying, I finally have a little bit of a breather here, I want to adjust, I want to address my customer journey, at least do a deep dive. Like where does it all start?
I think for me, it really starts with kind of data collection and segmentation. And it really goes kind of back to the basics of marketing, which is understanding who's buying your products and why. And there's a lot of challenges, I think, around that today. You know, with the interconnected world, we have so many different channels nowadays across all different types of platforms. Being able to truly understand and get some good segmentation for your audience is really kind of crucial, and it's really the starting point for I think most of these types of journeys. And it's something we commonly see, across markets is this lack of data continuity is one of the biggest challenges that most brands face today.
Where So I'm looking at this one, first party
Yeah.
data. Like,
First party data specifically, I think is one of the ones where it's becoming more and more important as third party data becomes less and less valuable and available. With cookies going away, with Also just probably cost reductions in terms of third party data purchasing. First party data collection is, I think, going to become more and more important to brands and already is today. Um, Going, I guess, maybe even to the next challenge, trying to take a first time buyer into a long-term supporter is also something that's increasingly more difficult today as kind of loyalty and customer loyalty continues to wane. Again, people are going to be more selective, I think, in the future, and loyalty is maybe not going to play as much of a role in any kind of buying cycle in the next couple of years potentially. So it's that one size fits all kind of generic approach, I think, is going to continue to wane and become less and less effective over time. And I think the other part that most people struggle with as they're kind of getting started in terms of creating customer journeys is really understanding the customer lifetime value, why it's important, how to measure it, and how to effectively improve it over time. Not just because of the data issues and and all that, but just again kind of the lack of consistency in the market today is going to create, I think, more and more challenges when it comes to understanding, the ROI on marketing spend, measuring it in an effective way, and connecting that to lifetime value.
Yeah, as I'm connecting these three things right here, and this, this idea that, the brand loyalty isn't there. I wonder if a lot of it is tied to, it's not necessarily that people don't want to be loyal. It
Yeah,
might be to this personalization standpoint that's in the challenge number three, which is like, give me a reason to be loyal. If you're going to treat me like a
yeah,
generic customer, then I'm going to treat you like a generic brand. But if you can give me
yeah.
something added or personalized, then I'm going to be more all in than I've been before because if you're going to make that journey easier for me. And that's what I got. Time crunch. That's what I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So personalize it, make it easier, and get me to the finish line quicker than somebody else. I'm there. I'm there all day long. And I wonder if there's just, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, is that piece
I
around loyalty.
I think loyalty is an ongoing thing, and it is something that I think brands in the past have kind of seen as not something that's necessarily worth investing a lot of time and effort into. It's been an important metric, but I think it's been taken for granted to some extent. It used to be that if you bought Ford, you bought Ford, and if your granddad bought Ford and your dad bought Ford, you bought Ford. And nowadays, it's just not that straightforward or simple. You know, Really connecting with your customers on a consistent basis across longer time horizons is really a necessity because there's so many other influencing factors today and so many more options. I mean, um, you know, back when we were growing up, there was only so many things you could buy, so many options that, online shopping wasn't even really a thing at that point. And today, you have so many more options available. Loyalty can't be taken for granted. It's something that has to be invested in. And it's something that has to be personalized because that's really what's going to drive that connection. If you don't feel connected to a brand, it's less likely that you will continue buying with them consistently.
So that begs then the question of the first one, which is gathering more first party data.
Yeah.
How are people doing that today? There's huge influx of like one great way was like QR codes back then. Well,
Yep.
obviously, you can get people on site. QR codes, great way to collect it. They kind of dipped off, and now they're skyrocketing back. But how do people solve number one, which then I think directly plays into number three, which then gets to you to be a loyal customer, which is kind of the middle challenge there.
Yeah. I think it's really you have to have a strategic approach, right? You have to start with a goal in mind in terms of what first party data you want to capture. Um, and really, I always recommend having a data roadmap. So having an understanding of not what your current needs are, but what your needs might be for the next year or two in terms of like, what do I want to know? What would I want to know a year from now? And you have to kind of use that as a starting point to understand and develop a strategy around actually collecting some of the data because it gives you some context in terms of direction. I think really from there, then it turns into an exercise of utilizing in your channels in a way that you can effectively capture information in a way that's not invasive, right? I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we see for brands today is, users are tired of seeing surveys, they're tired of getting this information. You have to kind of sometimes get a little creative and incentivize, not just incentivize, but make it a part of the experience of your website, of your in-store, experience, anything like that. And that could be in the form of creating things like quizzes where you're able to kind of capture data an interesting way, where it's not just like, hey, take this survey for us, please. It's, hey, we're going to provide some value back to you. We're going to give you some interesting content to think about. Another way that our customers are really getting a lot of great first party data is through chatbots. We have an AI chatbot solution where you can connect, to customers directly without human agents or with human agents if you want. And it's a great way to start kind of more of a conversation. And throughout that conversation, you can gather really good first party data. It's one way we're seeing a lot of our customers have a lot of great success in that capturing, where they might have just basic information, and by the end of a chat, they might have a good data set that they can utilize for future personalization.
Yeah, I love it. I'm just kind of I'm creating a little flywheel in my head here, which would be analyze, the current customer stack, your ideal customer profile, um, double check the data, make sure that that's right, right? And then analyze what's the data you want to get from them,
Yeah,
right? Because you don't need everything. Like maybe you don't need everything.
exactly.
You get that data that you need, and then you put together, and maybe that's also going to the newest tech that's coming out that you want to partner with. Because a lot of this AI stuff, the cleaner the information you can put in that it needs,
Yep.
the better. Extra information is not always better, but
Yep.
you can go around to your, obviously from the marketing stack, but any stack that you want. What is the actual data that we need to feed into the system? The next step is how are we actually going to get that data and then put that into process, right? It's going to be A/B testing, trial and error. How do you actually get that data? And then the more data that you get out of it, you pour back in to
Exactly.
identifying the
It's
customer.
that iterating life cycle, and it's something that I think has a ton of power. I think we're just really starting to see how AI is affecting customer journeys in general. It's finally gotten to the point where it's good enough to be able to do a lot of this out of the box with kind of, basic data. But again, what we see from customers is they're utilizing this data to feed into the actual bot itself to then create more and more meaningful content and experiences. We have in terms of our platform, we have things like Best Word, where you're able to actually pick out what words are having the most impact across all of my channels to see, oh, what's really making a genuine connection. Things like that, things like kind of proprietary reporting infrastructure on chatbots and AI, where you're able to get really meaningful information and data to feed your chatbot again. It creates this holistic, continual approach where you're improving more and more over time. And that feedback loop really creates a lot of additional value in terms of not only the personalization, but creating that unique experience for individual users because, the chatbot's going to remember the past conversations it's had with you.
No, I love it. I love it. So, I mean, because I'm just looking at this stuff here. The surveys, I don't fill those out, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
which
difficult.
survey? I do the Delta Airlines one question survey at the end of the call,
Yeah.
right? That's it. I hit a
Yep.
number and we move on. I'm not. And just a quick reminder to others: you have questions, commentary, drop in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll work it into the conversation and get the questions answered for sure. Um,
And one of the big issues we even see with that, like you said, like we talked about, like, customers are fatigued by surveys. You get anytime you interact with customer support or even just in a buying cycle, it's you get asked constantly. And even when you do fill those things out, a lot of times it gets unused. There's a lot of static feedback that brands aren't leveraging or don't have kind of the infrastructure to then take and use for personalization. And it can be kind of a big miss. I think the other kind of thing too that a lot of the best brands really do is they not only just leverage that active feedback that, direct NPS survey type things. But they also, take into account things like passive feedback, right? Behavioral data, sentiment analysis, things like that. And solutions like in digital can help with some of that. We can help with, identifying when a customer is likely to churn and getting them on a churn campaign where you can really try and win them back over. Um, Tools like a digital and it really can make a huge impact in terms of how you improve that engagement and how you identify those areas for opportunity.
Is that I'd love to dive into that a little bit more because I'm interested. You've mentioned the chat bot a couple times. Is that an active way to harvest data where people are voluntarily putting information in?
Oh
Have
yeah,
you,
and I'll give you a couple of examples even. There's, for example, we have a few different retail vendors who are using our product, and one of the ways we're gathering data is it's a customized shopping experience. It's a personal shopper. And with the personal shopper, you're able to gather a lot of information because people are like, "Hey, I'm interested in a new dress," and you can get information about what kind of dresses they like, what colors they like. You can get a lot of proprietary first party data that then you can utilize for remarketing purposes or, um, you know, website personalization later on to increase, the overall LTV for that customer. But things like that where you're able to capture this very minute data. It's not just like, oh, phone number, email, first name, last name, address, like very basic things. It is likes and dislikes. It is even things like style. Sometimes you can kind of, if you can separate it and segment it out in the back end in a meaningful way, you can get a lot of that data in through chatbots.
no, I love it. I mean, I'm gonna liken this back to like a chat GPT, right? How I
Yep.
use it, and it's really replaced a lot of what I would use Google for, which is I interact with Chat GPT completely different than I ever did with Google, where I'm
Yeah.
volunteering more information and I'm getting more conversational with it rather than just, staccato entering in keywords and hoping to get a
Yep.
result. And if you can get back and forth into a conversation, that's where I'm pulling it in. This chatbot piece is making sense now. All of a sudden, you're engaging on a conversational level with people in a personalized level that is then only refined over time.
Exactly. Exactly.
Then are you taking that and able to then match that and do different segmentations and interactions based on the people that are in, or is it just hyper personalized for everybody? Because the holy grail for the longest time, right, has been the one-to-one personalization. It's just, does it make sense? It's hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Is
think
it
over
worth
time,
doing it at the end of the day? Is it even worth,
yeah.
yeah.
I think over time we're going to get there from an AI perspective. I mean, you're already starting to see kind of even the effects of how things like algorithms can change perceptions. And to some extent, I mean, that is maybe on a cohort basis, but it's close enough to one-on-one that it's not going to be hugely different. I think today as marketers, we still have to look at segments and cohorts. And I think that is generally the more efficient way to do things in terms of the initial implementation. But I think over time, it is going to turn into this kind of one-to-one basis with a layer of direction put in by the development of the chatbot. So what do I mean by that? Like you as a brand marketer, if you're trying to make a big shift in terms of your brand style or in terms of hey, it's springtime now, we have to focus more on spring messaging, you can feed how the chatbot's developed and iterate on it to focus more on those things. So you have this data set that you're going to utilize as a starting point, and that generally is really cohort and segment focused if you have that information. But from there, it's really giving it a direction to point in over time to really not only just personalize, but lead customer behavior.
No, it's super interesting and I want to jump into like how you see the customer journey as a whole. But just one more thought, like on the chat, but it's switching it from a hey, almost, I don't know, it seems like 80% of those questions are, hey, has my order shipped yet? But if you
Yeah.
can convert that chat bot rather than just customer service, but like you're saying, a personal shopping assistant,
Yep.
and even thinking beyond that, that the goal of this always is to sell something, but maybe just important. Maybe that goal is 50-50. guide them to the right answer of what they want, but
Yeah,
also collect as much data around that person so you can give them a better service the next time around.
exactly.
And then
And
feed
that's
the,
that's really the difference within digital in general is if we connect the inbound and outbound. There aren't any platforms out there that do that. And you already kind of see this how marketing and sales are really starting to kind of connect deeper and deeper as departments. And I think you're going to start seeing also, and you do even in retail organizations, right? There are customer retention officers, for example, and that's becoming more and more of a popular title within retail organizations, e-commerce organizations, because that connection between the customer support and marketing and sales is becoming more and more important and deeper in terms of creating an overall experience that lends itself to customer needs today.
awesome. I love it. Um, how do you picture the overall customer journey? And
I
the other question is then how is developments in tech and AI and machine learning helping accelerate what that customer journey looks like? Because we want to have eye touch point, but at the end of the day, we want people to come in, however channel we hit them, and then we want them to convert, right? That's the customer
exactly.
journey, and then get them to
Yep.
come back.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. I think, the overall customer journey it's not that different than it has ever been historically, right? I think just like you pointed out, it is that multi-phase process where it's awareness to acquisition to purchase to retention to advocacy, right? It's not that different at its core and in its structure. It's the finer points, I think, that continue to evolve and evolve very rapidly in terms of where people are located, in terms of what touch points matter, in terms of how the actual experience plays out. And I think taking kind of a similar approach um, in terms of how you actually map things is extremely important, right? Like you said, you have to really start with the objectives, and that could be sales, it could be retention, it could be advocacy, it could be all the above. You have to define the objectives and scope to really start. And then it's a very similar process, but it's just more in depth and more nuanced than it ever has been. I think people in psychology haven't changed, but I think the way that they're interacting with brands across different touch points, obviously changes every day.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And expectations have changed, right?
Yeah. And expectations are a big part too. I mean, like personalization as a concept, that didn't exist 15 years ago. And today it's a huge expectation. It's like something like 78% of people expect having a personalized experience and won't buy from organizations that don't have personalization, right? We're so used to seeing things like even in I'll go back to retail again, but things like you may also like the recommendations, even those kind of simple things I think we almost take for granted nowadays, but they are personalized. And that in and of itself is something that people continue to, advocate for and want. And they expect brands to understand who they are at their core and feed them material and content and products that speak to that.
Yeah, and I think it's only going to get um it, people are going to expectations are only going to go up. And I'll go back
Exactly.
to like my chat GPT example. I use it for a lot of things, including like family vacations.
Yep.
Well, I'm planning a getaway with just the wife, leave the four kids at home, right?
Yep.
Um, it then prompted a question as I'm planning a trip, whether or not we should be concerned or making plans for the kids.
Hmm.
It's literally asking, are the kids going with you this time? Which means I hadn't
Yeah.
put it in to that query
Yep.
set, but it was pulling in what it previously knew to double
Exactly.
check to make sure it was doing the right thing.
Yep.
And that expectation, as it's rapidly adopted, whether it's that or Perplexity or Claude, or whatever you're using, right?
Yep.
That level of personalization, the coming back, when we're talking about personal assistance,
Yep.
it's going to be one thing to have it on a chat GPT or something like that. It's another one to have it on site, but those
Yep.
expectations are going to be exactly the same.
And that's
Interact
going
with
to
me on
continue
a
to grow. Yep.
conversational basis and remember the last 15 things that I told you. or
Exactly.
150 things.
Exactly. And I think too, the other part here, I know we've talked a lot about chatbots, but there is a lot of other parts of a customer journey that aren't that one direct. It's a great way to capture information, a great way to kind of personalize the experience, but taking that data and using it through a variety of other channels in an effective way is also something I think that's extremely important for brands to continue to iterate on and improve on because today there's so many ads. There's I don't know how many ads you see per day, but if you're like me, I see tons and tons and tons on every site I go to, every time I'm watching a video, you're constantly getting ads. So having different ways to impact customers with personalized content is, I think, also something that needs to continue to grow in terms of its efficacy throughout the marketing world. But I also think it's an expectation that customers are going to continue to want more and more of. If you're seeing an ad that is unrelated to anything that you enjoy, you're like, why am I getting this? It's an expectation that already exists in some ways.
Yeah, and is that leading into, I'm just looking at the graphic, like email, SMS, the timeliness of ads as a whole?
I think the time, yeah, exactly. The timeliness and the variety of channels. And I think, email and SMS are on here as examples, but those are the two most traditional. And they're also some of the ones that probably are seeing the least and least effect today. It is, push notifications, web push notifications. It is things like RCS, which is coming out soon in the US, hopefully. It's other social media platforms. It's WhatsApp. There's a great variety of different ways to connect with customers, and each customer is going to react to content differently. Like I don't think I've ever responded to an SMS from a company, me personally, but I might read an email occasionally. If I get a push notification, I generally read it. So it's the personalization not just comes down to the content itself, but how you're delivering it and delivering it in an effective and consistent way. And that's another way where platforms like InDigital can really help, where we have a proprietary AI technology that helps you choose the best channel for your customers and iterates with that over time. So each individual person will get a message from the channel that they're most likely to open and interact with. Or even things like we have a system called Best Path that I could even show real quick where it's going to select a path of different channels for a communication to really personalize the experience in a way over time to better affect the open rates and click-through rates and response rates. So let's see, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I mean it's a little small, but yes.
Yeah, I'll move in here. So as an example, Best Path is a technology where basically, you could see these are customer journeys and these are different message types. This is a push notification, this is email, this is SMS. We have a combination thereof. And what Best Path allows you to do is basically have the AI determine which of these paths are going to connect best with your customers. And it's going to send some down channel one, it's going to send some others down channel two. And then that's going to continue to iterate too, where now there's three channels under channel one. It will send them down one route, and for others, it'll send them down this other route. Um, it's a great and effective way to personalize content and information with customers and do it in a way where you're not having to build out like a million different customer journeys. You're just kind of building out a few different that you think make sense, a few different paths based on their interest or based on specific segments, and then just allowing the machine learning to decide which path works best for each customer.
Then how are you creating the messaging for everything?
So I think that goes back to mapping the customer journey, right? You
Yeah.
always need to start with the customer and always start with the customer in mind, which is what are the things they care about? How do I segment these in an effective way? What data do I have to support understand their goals or pain points or emotions? What's the reason someone buys from us from someone else? Those kind of basic, you could call them survey information, you can call them research reports, you can call them whatever, NPS studies. That's still, I think, the core of the starting point. And I think the other kind of major transformational change in terms of building more customer-centric content is generative AI, which I know we talked about last month as well, which is I think as marketers, we're going to be asked and will be continue to ask, especially through this kind of turbulent time, to do more with less, right? And especially as you're still trying to meet these expectations or growing expectations, utilizing things like generative AI, where you're able to create a custom message for a specific segment just by saying, "Hey, create a discount campaign for a user who likes these things," and it creates a direct message. Those types of marketer aid tools, I think, are going to be increasingly important. And we have some of those built into our system as well, where you're able to build custom messages. You're able to start building those campaign paths very quickly and easily as a single marketer.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I couldn't agree more. Um, the from the marketer standpoint, I mean, their role has changed more dramatically over the past 5 years than most. And the demands on them are so much higher. So not only are they looking at consistently and constantly looking at the newest tech that's out there, that's they're looking at the newest tech that's out there. They may have to make a determination is the right fit, if the cost is right, and if that company is going to be around,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That's
Hmm.
because so many of those guys popped up over the past 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
and then didn't make it, ran out of funding or whatever it was. So you're doing that, and then you have the rollout, and then whatever that tech is, the next part is the messaging.
Yeah.
The generative
Exactly.
AI, exactly what you're saying. The generative AI has to be there because now you're required to have it hyper personalized, put
Yep.
out more than ever at the right time via the right pathway with the right message.
Yep, exactly. And that's going to continue to be the expectation. I mean, that's the evolution, I think, of customer-centric customer journeys in general is that hyper personalization. Not only I think is it a reality, but I also think it's something that is going to continue to be an expectation, and that expectation is just going to continue to grow.
100%, 100%. Yeah, I've been just peppering you with questions. I don't know if there's additional slides here, but I've loved the conversation so far. And again, those listening in, you have questions, you have commentary, things you want us to address, drop them into the chat or the Q&A, and we'll be sure to get to them.
Yeah, I think one thing we could talk about maybe is really real-time engagement as well, because I think, beyond chatbots, which are kind of a real-time way to interact with customers, and we already talked about some of these already, but there's also kind of I think I wouldn't just say a growing expectation, but there is, I think, a continued need to have real-time triggers and real-time interactions and have um, that quick response time can make such a huge difference in a customer journey, whether that's a customer support effort where, I'll give you an example. I was looking for support for a product that I bought recently, and I messaged a chatbot and it said, we normally respond in a few hours. And I was like, that's insane today. You know, I want an answer right now. Like, why can't I get an answer right this second? I have to wait a few hours and keep the window open. It's like, it's insane. So beyond even just the customer support element of it, even from a marketing perspective, I mean, we always talk about like cart abandons and the importance of triggers for cart abandons. Things like that, I think, are still important in capturing kind of people's attention when they're thinking about purchasing something is still such a big and important thing. But now you have this AI middle layer, which is able to deliver those messages through the channels that people are most likely to interact with. You're giving yourself a huge option that improves that overall engagement significantly, right? We've seen, boosts of engagement by more than 40% with things like real time, AI delivery of content based on triggers, where someone had a cart abandon and within 5 minutes they get an SMS or they get a WhatsApp message or they get an email or whatever they're most likely to interact with.
Yeah, do you see just generative AI being like more quickly adopted right now? There is a little bit of a hesitancy on the brand side anytime it's actually images.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of it's just, text as well. Are you seeing this just rapid adoption? Are we at a table stakes?
I think we're starting to get to the point where the adoption is increasing and increasing more and more. I think there's still gonna be a need and with all of these, we've talked a lot about AI, but that mix of tech and human interaction, I think, will continue to be an important part. Having people review messages and content is still going to be a necessity, especially if you're a big brand, because you still want to speak with that same brand voice. You still want to maintain that overall control, and I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. Um, I think the creation of content, certainly though, we are seeing generative AI used more and more and more, not just within our platform, but I think in general in the market. And again, part of that is a reaction to marketers having to do more with less. Part of that is a reaction to the need for hyper personalization because of customer expectations. Part of that, I think, is also just because it's a great tool in your tool set. But anything that my team creates that's through generative, I still review it. And I think we will still see that approval layer being a necessity um, for foreseeable future because there is still a level of inconsistency with AI, and there is still, I think, just table stakes in terms of maintaining a brand image that you don't want something getting out there that speaks something that says something completely different than what your company believes.
Yeah. One quick question that comes in, where do you fit into the tech stack? So I guess that's from an in digital standpoint. Where do you fit in?
So we're we're a great product for a lot of different use cases. We are either a standalone customer engagement marketing automation solution, where you could either connect directly to a CRM and then utilize us for marketing automation through all of your different digital channels. We have also an internal CDP, a customer data platform, so you could also just pull in your existing data into our solution, and then again utilize us for marketing automation. We also integrate with other marketing automation tools as well to really improve the specific channel feature set for things like Salesforce Marketing Cloud or HubSpot, where there's deficiencies in specific parts of their product. We plug and play with those products as well to really, again, improve some of those feature sets.
Awesome. Awesome. Other people have questions, drop them in the chat or the Q&A and we'll get to them. Um, yeah, let's keep rolling. If there's more slides, this is fun.
Yeah. Let's see here. Going back, I guess maybe to we talked a little bit about personalizing at scale and how you do that from a customer-centric perspective. We just talked a little bit about that AI touch, but I really want to dig deeper into that. Um, if you're able to contextualize real experiences and have meaningful interactions with customers, a lot of times it's still dependent upon humans to really drive that interaction, right? So let me give you an example here. We have an AI chatbot solution, and we have a contact center solution. So chatbot can resolve the majority of questions that customers have, but when it falls short, it passes it off to a human. Well, a human can directly type in and actually have that conversation, but we have generative AI within our contact center solution. So an agent can manage multiple conversations at once, but they can do so with generative AI as well. So you're having this layer of AI in the beginning, right? And then you have this connection to the back end to a real human, but that human can still leverage these same tools and review them in real time to get kind of a customized, personalized message that still feels human, but has some layer of review um, feeding into it. So that human connection is still, I think, extremely important, especially in things like customer support, where sometimes, emotions can run high and people want to talk to a real person still. Having that as an option, I think, is extremely important.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think we've all gotten there where I'm just saying, I need to talk to a human.
Yeah, yeah,
And when that's denied, it gets very irritating, very irritating.
exactly.
Yeah. Like, are there like key things that you see when you first start a conversation with a brand, like things they should be thinking about? Is they're kind of doing their own self-inflection, their own self-evaluation of how the site is operating, what is going on, how they're collecting data? Are there like key things that pop up over and over again?
I think there's a few key points that we see frequently. I think the one of the biggest ones is the um, I think it's the types of channels. There's a few channels that like people just underutilize. I think chatbots are seeing some adoption, but I think there's still a lot of brands that aren't utilizing it or underutilizing it, where maybe they're using it for support, but they're not using it for that personalized shopping experience or other great use cases that they can really get value from. I think the other ones may be web push notifications, which is a generally an underutilized service in the US, where you're still able to connect with customers if you don't have any of their first party data. It's a great way to start collecting first party data. I think in terms of the customer journey, though, the biggest miss that I see, both as a consumer and as a marketer, as we're talking to brands, is the post purchase experience. It is turning that first time buyer into a loyal consumer. I think there's this big gap post purchase between purchase and support where that upsell cross sell is something I think a lot of brands are cognizant of. I think they do a lot of, but the actual experience itself, the value that you're bringing as a brand, I think sometimes that gets lost in the sales. And what I mean by that is the KPIs and metrics miss the importance of emotional connection with brand post purchase, right? If I purchase a new pair of shoes from a brand, they might send me some additional information about other shoes. And it's like, great, but I just bought a pair of shoes. I may not need more shoes, right? Or they might send me some socks where it's a cross sell. But it's not creating any kind of loyalty outside of the product itself. It's not creating loyalty through the brand itself. And when I get a good experience from a brand, it's normally when they send me related content that improves the experience of the product. So going back to the shoe analogy, it's like how would you style this pair of shoes in three different ways? Something like that, like a blog or an article or something that has a real connection to the experience of owning a pair of shoes, that creates a more meaningful experience for me as a consumer. And also, I think greatly improves loyalty because it shows that not only does a brand care about selling you stuff, it cares about your experience with the product. And I think that post-purchase experience part, I think, is one that a lot of organizations miss on because they're over-focused on the KPIs of upsells or cross-sells or retention.
Wow. I love it. Um, I don't have any more questions that are coming in here. Are there like key takeaways or things that we didn't get to that are, you think are worth going through in the last couple of minutes here as we get to the end and start to wrap up?
I would say the biggest things, and I'll put the slide up here, is that having a customers focused and a customer centric approach can really have a huge, meaningful impact on your overall ROI, your overall profitability as an organization. Um, Maintaining and building brand loyalty is much easier when you're focused on your actual customers, right? And that has meaningful impacts down the line all the way to ROI. I think today, in particular, as we see people being more selective, as we see people spending less, as uncertainty grows, the need for refinement an approach that's customer centric is going to be more and more important. And it's going to have a meaningful impact. Like you can see here, some of what our customers are able to get, right? An 80% improvement on customer LTV. It's a huge, huge improvement, right? 32 times more purchases per user with tailored, personalized approaches, right? Um, a large overall increase in user lifetime, right? People buy more and they're buying for longer. When you have personalization, when you've built out a customer journey that is reflective of what your customers care about, and speaks to them and not just tries to sell to them.
No, I agree. I mean, the other thing that I'm pulling out from here is another trend that I'm seeing is just the simplification and the rationalization of the overall tech stack
Yep.
into a single unit that can do it all. Like to have
Yeah.
a cohesive unit that's operating and executing.
Exactly.
It's something people are looking for all the time. Nobody wants it to be more difficult or more complicated. It's
Exactly. And that's where, customer engagement platforms like a digital, where not only can we handle all of your outbound digital channels,
Mhm.
but more importantly, we can also, handle your inbound channels as well. All that in one solution can have a huge impact because it, like you just said, it simplifies the process, it simplifies the management, it centralizes the data, and it makes it much easier to iterate and improve over time. Not only because it's all in one place, but also because it's fed by AI and machine learning that helps do it for you.
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, Josh, I mean, this has been fantastic. I don't have any other questions that are dropped in the chat or the Q&A, but I'd recommend, anybody who's listening in, have a follow-up conversation with the team over at indigitall. They're great friends, partners, supporters, and network. They're doing some really cool things. It's that next wave of technology that's coming out that simplifies what's going on. And I just encourage you to have a follow-up conversation with Josh and the team over there. Also, look for an email from me. I'd love to have a conversation with you. I'll shoot you an email as well. Love to pick your brain, newest trends, things that you're seeing, but also pain points you're having, so we can get the topics for the next webinars that we're doing as well. But with that, Josh, I think it's a great time to end this. This has been absolutely a blast. Yeah, thanks so much for your time today. This has been fun.
Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks,
Abs-
everybody.
Absolutely. And thanks, everybody. Take care, stay safe. Looking forward to having you at a future event. Alrighty, we'll see you, everybody. Bye bye.